Leadership is about more than telling people what to do. It's about inspiring belief in your vision for the future. Now, sometimes there's a delay between the time you share the vision and when the rest of the team gets it. The Latency and Leadership series hopes to shorten that lag time by creating a platform for leaders in the tech space to share their ideas, their passion, and their vision. I'm Catchpoint's Principal Technical Advocate, Leon Adato, and with me today, no surprise, is Catchpoint CEO Mehdi Daoudi. Welcome. Before
Thank
the
you for
hellos,
having me, Leon.
my pleasure, entirely my pleasure. So I know that the work, to say nothing of the back-to-back meetings and all the other headaches of being a CEO are never done. And so I just appreciate you carving out some time here today to be with me. It may not be obvious to everybody that being a CEO isn't the same thing in all companies or for all people. So before we get into the sort of the meat of the topic, can you share what a day in the life of CEO, what CEO means in your expression of it, like your experience?
I wish there was a single thing, but I've had I have an amazing coach that has been helping me for the past 5-6 years be a better version of myself on a daily basis. And if I asked him what does a CEO do, he would keep telling me, Mehdi, you should know by now. It's build a great team, create a great environment, and then exercise your superpower, whatever that is, right? So with this being with customers, being with your employees, etc. But it's really those three things: build a great team, make sure you keep recruiting. Do you have the right folks on the bus, right, as they call it? And then make sure that the bus is a comfortable bus for everybody to give 100% of themselves. And then after that is you go and do your superpower thing, and whether it's talk about BGP or talk about nodes or why monitoring is important, or from time to time install a smoke detector somewhere. So
nice. Okay, so it's very service oriented. You're the chief person who keeps the floor clean so everyone else doesn't trip over something trying to get the job done.
Yeah, I think there is a lot. I mean, there are different kinds of, I think, leadership style. I've subscribed more to the floor sweeper model, which is like you lead by example. You don't ask people to do things that you wouldn't do yourself. But there are different styles, right? So I prefer that style. That's a little bit more. But ultimately, I think it's also being there for our customers. I think that's number one, is listening to your customers, understanding where they want you to be, understanding their pains, their challenges, being able to anticipate a little bit where the market is going so you can drive product innovation. Not yourself, but with your company, right? And it's like, okay, well, are we getting the right signals from the customers that they're going to start dealing with these problems in a few years? And so because moving the Titanic is very hard, right? It's like you can't just switch overnight. But it's really about, at the end of the day, I think it's about anticipation of things, of problems with their employees, customers, market, competition, geopolitical stuff. I mean, and it's like being able to react quickly. And again, that can only happen if you have a great team behind you, right? I mean, so that's why it's like, it goes back to building a great team.
I love it. That's great. Okay, so again, being respectful for your very busy time. Normally, when I'm doing these, I'll sort of frame things or put some context around it. But you started off when we were talking before with this amazing story that does all of that. So I'm going to get out of the way. And like, what was it that caused you to say, Leon, we need to turn the camera on. We have to have this conversation. Tell me that story.
Yeah, so this was a few weeks ago, a meeting with a customer, and there was a conversation that literally triggered me. So before Catchpoint, I used to literally be on the other side of the monitoring tools. So I used to buy, build, deploy monitoring tools at DoubleClick and Google, and so I have a deep appreciation for signal quality. I have a deep appreciation for signal depth and richness. I have a deep appreciation for false positives that almost caused me a marriage, almost, thank God. But, fake false alarms at 2 o'clock in the morning, an entire week will literally damage a couple, will damage young babies at home, right?
Mm-hmm.
Especially at the time when people didn't have cell phones, but literally the phone house would ring, right, at 2 o'clock in the morning. So I have a
hate to
deep
say I
appreciation
remember
for
those
that.
days. Oh, so keep
Right.
going. Sorry. Yeah.
I have deep appreciation also for false negatives, not knowing you have a problem, right? And then getting a phone call. I remember I had this amazing CEO, Kevin O'Connor at DoubleClick, the founder and CEO of DoubleClick, and he literally was the best monitoring tool we could ever have because he would detect slowness. And so false negative is like when you don't know you have a problem, and then your CEO calls and say, "Hey, I can't log in, or I can't do this," right? It's like, damn, I should catch that. And I have also another thing, which is a deep appreciation of unknown unknowns, right? The complexity of the systems that some of our customers, actually most of our customers, are dealing with, right? They are operating in every country in the world. They have to deliver services and experiences to devices, to people, to cars, to planes. I mean, you name it, right? So we have hospitals, right? So there is sometimes also life and death. So I totally understand and appreciate all of that. And so the thing that triggered me was this conversation around this particular person wanted clean signals so they wouldn't have to do the work. And so it's like, well, Mehdi, your Catchpoint gives us a lot of data. Sometimes we don't know, but we would rather go with something that just tells us everything is okay from Amazon, from AWS. And that triggers me. And so.
So wait, I'm stopping you and just this person used the term clean signal to basically mean all green, not
yes, all green, right? So it's basically imagine if I love the analogy of smoke detectors because ultimately that's how I see a little bit what we do. Is imagine if you only went and bought a smoke detector that will never beep, or that doesn't come with batteries, or it's just like doesn't have a speaker built in because why bother? Oof,
right.
And so that triggered me, and what triggered me even more is the reason why is like so people can make their bonus. So basically, you have an employee that works for a company that has a bonus, that has an MBO, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to choose the tool and I'm going to optimize for my outcome, not the outcome of the company and therefore the entity that pays my salary, right?
Right.
And I found that to be a little bit, I don't know, cheating. And it's
not
just
a
like
little
it bothered
bit.
me.
It's not a little bit. It's cheating. I mean, like you are saying, I only want monitoring if it always tells me everything is fine. The phrase I've developed over years for myself was painting the roses green.
Yes.
They're red, but I had one manager look at me and say, "Well, it's not really down. It's just down-ish." Like that's.
Yes.
I'm sorry that it shows up on the report as 2% or whatever it is, but it's down. It was down for this period of time. It was not reachable. So
and on this particular thing, so I have again another personal thing. It's like in the 90s, early 2000, back then there was Sidescope, great tool that is still around, Gomez and Keynote. And then my boss at the time, it was the financial crisis of 2000. We had to cut some budgets, and obviously monitoring was the thing that we wanted to reduce, and we were spending millions of dollars on Gomez at the time. And my boss said, "Well, we'll just monitor from Sidescope, like from within the DoubleClick data centers." And I said, I'd rather quit. Literally, I would rather quit than do this because, your reputation is everything you have. There is no salary that I mean, again, I think at the end of the day, company A, company B, company Z, your reputation is what people buy and hire, right? It's like, am I hiring the best reputable person that is going to get the job done? Not that he's going to cheat the job done. You know what I mean?
Right,
And
right.
so, and we never cut Gomez because I said, I'm going to quit. And then you guys go and explain that to your customers that our head of monitoring and SLAs and whatever is going to think. So there was some common sense, thank God, and some cooler heads prevailed. But this thing of like, I'm just going to buy tools and I'm just going to monitor in a way that way I can make my bonus and I can make my stuff. I find that like, I mean, I don't work for that company, obviously, but it really pissed me off. And sorry to use crude language here, but and just thinking about it, my blood pressure is going up again. So
yeah, I look at people like that. I've been in a privileged position where I wasn't working for them. I could give some sort of straight answers. That would you rather be, would you rather the data be inconvenient or you be a laughing stock?
Well, you can't hide that at some point, right? So my next thing to him is like, okay, so you get the tool that tells you get a thermometer, a smoke detector that says there is no smoke, everything's fine. The house burns to the ground, right? Then what do you tell your boss? Like, what's the explanation? Because at some point, somebody's going to go on Twitter, X, whatever, and complain that such a service is unusable. You cannot book a flight. You cannot make a critical email. You cannot do something. And then this guy, I don't understand. Your telemetry is telling me everything is green, but then we have customers that are complaining, and you can't hide that. How do you constantly? So at the end of the day, you can't hide the lie, right? It will always come. So, and I felt that this is this business of lying that, and I'm not generalizing to this industry, of course, but this is now the second or third time I see this. So it's just like, is this a pattern where people are just like, you know what? We don't want the noise. We don't want the work. We don't want to troubleshoot. We don't want to figure out what's actually hurting the company I work for, that I'm paid premium dollars to fix.
Right. There's also, so another response besides I mean, it's easy for you and me to get into pointing fingers and, oh, look how dumb they are and look how selfish they are and whatever. There's also sort of a core of that, which is sincere, which is, I'm getting too much noise. I'm getting too much, like, I don't like the messages I'm getting. And my answer is, well, let's talk about tuning. Let's talk about real fidelity. Okay, fine. There is too much noise. You are getting too many false positives. You are getting too, whatever it is. Let's tune it. But at the end of the day, what we're talking about today is not that. We're talking about people who are purposely, as you've said, taking the batteries out of the smoke detector because it's just so annoying when I cook. And it keeps going off. Like, you need some cooking classes, probably, but that's really what we're talking about. And this idea that I'm putting my bonus first, not putting my company first, my users first, my, whether they're my internal users or external. But it's just mind-boggling. So
And by the way, sometimes I'm wondering if it's not even their decision, but they're just following other people's decisions. So then it becomes a culture. I've always believed, you see, so I was lucky enough to have worked with people where I was able to challenge them and to literally create a culture of performance. Because at the end of the day, monitoring, observability, all that stuff can only really take root very nicely if there is a culture of improvement. If you have an organization that creates that environment, right? Create an
Right.
environment where it's safe to say we suck and we're going to get better, versus there is nothing to look here. Everything is great. Everything is green. So I'm
Yeah.
wondering if these folks sometimes are just like under so much pressure that the environment is not convenient for them to say, hey guys, we have problems. We should fix them. Well, we need to improve our performance. We need to improve our reliability and our reachability or whatever it might be. So I don't want to necessarily just put it on it may be an environment, right? And so
Right.
then it becomes a little bit harder to shake, right? But it's a culture of performance, right? And I admire people. I mean, I've had some amazing encounters at Catchpoint where I've met companies where the culture of performance was so profound, it literally moved mountains, right? People went from 70% availability to almost 99.999 because everybody went in and decided to improve it, right? The signals were very noisy. There was a lot of stuff, but there was we're going to improve. And they were like, every day we're going to improve by 10 milliseconds, 20 milliseconds, right? And that stuff adds up very quickly. And before you know it,
Yeah.
you're the fastest social network. You're the best, e-commerce platform, et cetera, et cetera.
Right. That's a critical thing for folks who are listening to this, is that the improvements, it's not all or nothing, and incremental improvements really do stack much faster than you might expect. Going back to something that you said about the culture, I have seen this a lot where an incident becomes an identity, that, something happened and it's not, it was bad. We didn't want it. It wasn't what we wanted. But instead of saying that happened and the response wasn't great, we say we suck. Like that's an identity. And it's hard to change an identity, but it isn't hard to learn from an incident, from an experience.
Right.
And again, that's all cultural. It's all, how a company or a team chooses to view things that happen and view themselves.
Yeah. I mean, the reason I'm here, literally physically here in front of you today, is the way I used to introduce myself is like, I took DoubleClick down for 3 hours, and I am for the rest of my life in monitoring purgatory, right? So I was an ops guy at DoubleClick, and I was cleaning up some servers one day, and I deleted one file, and that file was actually used by our load balancers to check the health of every server. I deleted that file, propagated everywhere, and basically the entire system came crawling to a halt. And so I took the biggest ad network, ad serving system in the planet at the time down for 3 hours. And my boss didn't fire me. He said, I want you, and I was, he called me into his office the next day, and the CIO at the time, he says, I want to learn from you. I want to learn what you've done so it never happens again. So I'm a huge believer. Again, that was like talk about a moment that defines an organization, because then I wanted to go to bat for this guy for the rest of my life. I would take bullets for him, right? Mm-hmm. Because okay, I screwed up, but he wasn't blaming. He wasn't calling me names. He wasn't telling me, you kind of freaking moron does this or whatever. It's like, I want to learn, what did you do so it never happens again? And that has been like something that I preach now at Catchpoint. I've been preaching day one, is like, people will make mistakes, like whether you're in sales or in engineering or customer support or whatever, right? But at the end of the day, what can you learn from it? So, but that culture of performance, I mean, we said site reliability engineering, all that stuff. That was like a no blame, right? The concept of no blame culture is extremely important to foster this environment where you can screw up, you can learn, you can improve. You can say, hey guys, we're in the wrong direction. We shouldn't follow the sheeps and do blah blah whatever. But so I think it starts there. It's this culture of no blame, culture of like being able to break things.
Yeah, and a culture of move fast, break things in test, not in production. and the next statement is you do have a test environment, right? Because that would be bad if you didn't have that.
But it's hard sometimes to test everything in testing. I mean, as I said, most of our customers deal with some environments that are extremely complex. It's very hard to reproduce every environment in a QA environment. So
yeah, and have rollback plans and all of those things. I think that culture of performance also relies on methodologies, on having a systematic way of approaching things. And going back to the original point, this person who is looking at you and saying, well, we're looking for something that has a cleaner signal, or whatever it was that they said. And what that speaks to is, I actually don't have a process for selecting tools. I'm going on vibes, as the kids say, right? And so I wanted to get your take. I wanted everyone who's listening to this to hear your take. What methodology, what process do you think about when you think, okay, we're going to evaluate tools. We're going to look at which ones we should be adopting and how we should be adopting them, and why, and stuff like that. That is a huge challenge for a lot of organizations, because it happens rarely and there's so much on the line. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so again, I go back to my experience. So when I took over the monitoring team at DoubleClick, we wanted to change things because we were not happy with what we had. And I went and selected the tool. And then my boss looked at me and said, one vendor, not 3, not 5, just 1. Show me the way you did your math, right? Show me the equation. What did you choose? What are the criteria? How did you grade people? And it's like, huh? What are you talking about? I just went the feeling. The website looked cool. And the salesperson took me to a nice dinner, right?
Yeah.
A good old day.
Yeah.
I think it starts with so he taught me first time manager errors, I guess. But so I think so the lesson there was like, okay, what are you trying to solve? Like, what's the outcome you're looking to get to? Number one. Again, if you're looking to detect smoke in your house, you're not going to go and buy a garden hose, right? You need to buy the right tool. So I think it starts by understanding what you're looking for, putting in place a grid of what is important in the tools. Like, again, smoke detectors. Like, I'm actually looking for smoke detectors because Nest, Google is discontinuing their smoke detectors very soon, right? So for me, I am an Apple guy, so I need my stuff to work in the Apple ecosystem. So I need to make sure that, hey, I'm not going to buy something and I have to go and buy another device or whatever. So I think having the right criteria. And then what's important for you? Is it being able to work on Apple more important, or is it being able to share it with your spouse more important, or to connect it to your alarm system more important? Again, I think it's very important to define what is the outcome. Then what are the features and criteria that are super important to you? Like, for example, if we're in the monitoring stuff, great. So you want signals. Fantastic. You want to alert on signals. Great. Well, if the tool doesn't allow you to filter and just do averages, that for me is going to be a bad tool. You need to be able to have the flexibility of doing mathematical calculations on the data, on the signal you're getting. Mm-hmm. If we live in a world where it's going to be AI driven, if you don't have a fire hose approach to your data, being able to point it somewhere, then that's not going to be a good tool. Again, it's like, what is the outcome? What's important for your company today, but also what is important for your company tomorrow and the day after tomorrow? Because you're not buying tools every day. You need to buy for at least 2-3 years. So you need something that can sustain a little bit the pressure of time and be able to survive the next 2-3 years worth of challenges. And then you need to test, because there is no such thing as buyer's remorse. So I remember back after my failed attempt to pick one tool, when we went back, we had to set up a lab environment. We had OpenView, had BMC back in the days. We had
Mhm.
Micromuse, for those that remember Micromuse.
Yes.
We had a bunch of things, literally, and we eliminated vendors that didn't want to participate in the lab. And so, but we wanted to test on maintaining, installing, how easy is it was it going to be for us to install ourselves, or do we have to always call the vendor to come and install it? So, and then we graded, and then we went in front of the CIO and his peers, and we said, this is the decision. This is based on ABC. This is the grades, and actually it was, and everybody was comfortable because they understood how you resolve the mathematical problem, right? At the end of the day, it's an equation. Everybody can come up with the result. Show me how you came to that conclusion, right? And so I think having a methodology is important. I think just going by what ChatGPT or Reddit or something is an interesting. It's not everything, and I think
It,
you need to try. You need to make sure that this is giving you what you're looking for.
yeah, it's, the analysis, whether you're talking about Gartner or ChatGPT or any of those, is a place to start. But you probably wouldn't select a doctor based on those inputs either, and it's a critical thing. I also think that, yeah, that looking ahead, um, first of all, getting it on paper, that RFP of, we need X feature because of Y,
Right.
and those are very specific company particular things that won't transfer from one organization to another organization. And in fact, in some cases, you may think, because of your view of the company, we need X because of Y, but when it gets shared and socialized, other teams are like, actually, that Y assumption is wrong. We don't do
Correct.
that. We actually do this
You
other
know,
thing.
you said something very important, because your company, in making this decision, in getting a tool, it doesn't matter what tool, whether it's Slack, Microsoft Office, Google, monitoring tools, etc. You are going to mature as an organization. You are going to get better at using those tools. You're going to come up with some creative ways of doing things, like, oh, wow, I can do this with Slack, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then the question is going to be, is that tool going to be able to grow with you? Is going to be able to mature with you?
Yeah.
Or are you going to go back to the drawing board next year? I mean, I have this bank customer that has been a great partner of ours for years. They do this exercise every 5 years. So nothing is taken for granted. And, but they literally do an awesome job at figuring out where they are today, what they need today, but most importantly, what do they need 5 years from now? So they have this concept of, like, they write a memo to themselves from the future and say, hey, I need this. Do you have that? And it's actually a really interesting thing. Like, put yourself in the future, even as an SRE leader, a DevOps leader, etc. Right? Project yourself in the future and ask yourself, hey, I'm going to need this in 2030. Which tool is going to be able to do that?
Right. It's a little bit of reading the tea leaves, but it's also, in some cases, a little bit of common sense. I want to buy a Mazda, right? And you look at your spouse and they say, we're not going to have no kids in 5 years. Maybe that Mazda is not the best choice. Maybe, if not full on minivan, maybe whatever, maybe you put that Mazda to the side or whatever. Like, it's that common sense. Right. All right. And I can't believe I'm raising this, because I am the person who owns the domain AIcurmudgeon.com. But I'm going to say, how does, RFP and comparisons and stuff like that, how does the existence of AI, and I will say real AI, not the BS AI that gets foisted on us, the AI washing.
That has AI, and the ketchup bottle that has AI. Come on.
Yes, and the toaster and the tennis shoes and all that, right? The real AI, machine learning trained on large data sets. Okay, that how does that factor into people's consideration of tools and techniques and what might be coming in the not so distant future? What does that say to you?
So I've been doing monitoring now since 1997. So it has been a minute and a half.
Hmm.
And as a buyer, as a vendor, so I've seen both sides. And since that time, I've been looking for the magical, elusive, mirage-esque single pane of glass.
Right.
One thing that is going to tell me everything about my network switches, my network routers, my ISPs worldwide, my millions of servers, all that stuff.
Yep.
To
All the way
end
down to your
user,
lines of code. Yes.
yes, yes. And by the way, it's a great aspiration. I think a lot of people have spent billions, if not trillions, of dollars trying to get there. I mean, I tried a double click twice. It failed. Now, granted, the tools were X, Y, and Z, but it doesn't matter. I think for the first time in my life in the monitoring space, I'm seeing something that is truly game changing. And so, if you remove the BS of AI and again, peanut butter with AI, ketchup with AI kind of thing, but the ability to have a machine go through tons and tons and tons of data, completely unstructured, and connect the dots and be able to learn about connecting dots faster, better, etc., then we are at the dawn of something that is truly magical in the monitoring space, which is for the first time being able to not rely on humans to look at micro outages or little things that's like I don't understand. Or again, most importantly, be able to connect the dots. I want to look at this outage. Hey, show me the network's log, show me the security log, show me all of that stuff. And for the machine to be able to sift through all of that and connect the dots. So I think for the first time, I'm seeing the real possibility, and I've seen that at some customers already. And what's really nice about it is like then customers, companies are going to be free to choose the best of breed solutions and let AI do the connectivity rather than I'm going to keep going at this single pane of glass.
Yeah.
And then basically be okay with like mediocre solutions just because they pretend to give you some kind of single pane of glass. So I think that's going to be if I had to put a dollar, if I had to bet, if I did bet, I would bet more on that kind of stuff, which is like, okay, let's go with the best of breed charting solution, dashboarding solution, etc., and let AI do the connect my logs, connect my APM, connect my RUM, connect this, connect my logs from the CDNs, and be able to see all of that. I think I've seen this already at some customers where they have great solutions, Catchpoint, Dynatrace, they have Akamai, and all of that they have Splunk, and all of that gets like literally munched into one place. But then instead of wasting money on chasing the single pane of glass, they're truly letting the machines connect the dots. Because at the end of the day, as I said, things are getting so complex. There is no human anymore. I don't care how smart these people are. There is no human anymore that is capable of looking at the traffic of a social network or a big bank or whatever and say, I understand everything. I can see through the matrix. Like literally they can see the lines of code coming. It's like, oh, I see where the problem is. It doesn't exist. So the speed, the complexity, the denial of service attacks, the traffic from all around the world, all of that is machines that are going to be able to say, hey, Mehdi, hey, Leon, hey, Mike, hey, Janice, this is what the machine detected, right? Investigate.
Right.
You still need that human thing, right? Don't get me wrong, but it's going to be less of like, okay, the forensic has been done by the AI. Let the person now figure. I mean, listen, this is what we're seeing in the medical world, right? Already, machines are much better at screening for breast cancer. much better. Then you let the doctor at the end like do what doctors do, but the image scanning, it can go through stuff faster, better than any doctor from Harvard, MIT, or whatever you want.
Right. And we're allowing machines to be the thing that they are, assistive devices, right? A machine can also dig a ditch much better and faster than I can with a shovel, that kind of thing. As long as we don't believe that we can cede our own direction to it. I also think, coming back to monitoring, is that what you're speaking to is a story that is becoming more prevalent, thankfully, which is the plays well with others. A lot of tools, okay, back in our day, because I started doing monitoring about the same time you did, every tool was the one and only true tool. You were going to have Tivoli and you ain't going to have anything else, or you were going to have Unicenter, or you were going to have OpenView, and that was the only tool you were going to need or have or be able to afford, to be perfectly honest. So, but now much more companies are being really good at a core set of things. And I will say that we here at Catchpoint, that is our stock in trade. We do some things really, really well. We don't do everything, because nobody does everything, and we're not going to lie and pretend we do. And we play well with others. A lot of companies are playing well. Our data can be exported easily. It can be pipelined. It can be transformed in ways that you need it to. And going back to your point, if in the middle of that is machine learning that is taking that data set and constantly repivoting it and relooking at it and slicing it to find those unknown unknowns, that's a real possibility. That is a thing that really can be done. And that is a leveling up of monitoring and observability.
Also, you're spot on. And the other thing that I think machines are going to be really good at is dealing with the false positives, right? Because I think the algorithms at being able to, we've been playing with this at Catchpoint for 5, 6, 7 years now with this algorithm we have called trend shift, which is like, how do we put the system in autopilot mode to some degree, right? Where it's like, let the system detect what's abnormal. Mm-hmm. Let the tool detect that something is out of whack, whether up or down, it doesn't matter, right? But there is a deviation of something. And I think that's what machines are really, really, really good at. And we need to so I think machines are going to be able to help us with, again, make sure that you play well in the sandbox with all the other kids in the toolbox, but then also dealing with the false positives. Like, okay, can I quickly eliminate this as a threat? Can I quickly eliminate this as a real issue? So then the humans can do more interesting things rather than being burned out because they're dealing with one false positive after another one after another one. At my peak at DoubleClick, we're dealing with 5,000 false positives a day. The team was going berserk. Where do you think I got this haircut from?
Right. And not only going berserk, but also the exhaustion leads to, the alert fatigue leads to people just ignoring. I hear it all the time. Monitoring tools suck. Alerts suck. Like, no, they really don't. They just, you have them tuned wrong, or you've got them, or whatever it is. Right. You start to disbelieve things. I was on one team where they were getting something like 800 alerts on just the email system. Yeah. And so everything just sat. And I spent just a couple of weeks working with them to really fine tune it. And they went from 800 to 8. Yeah. 8 alerts. But the thing that happened, okay, fine. They got a good night's sleep, but they also responded significantly faster to those 8 tickets, because when they got that ticket, they knew it was real. They knew when their pager or their phone or whatever device it was went off at 2:00 in the morning, they knew that it mattered. And that's also important, in and of itself. Like, not to be, you're no longer embarrassed about the alert. Oh God, like, no, this is real. It's on fire.
Our firefighters, right? when they respond to an alarm, they respond with their hearts and soul, right? Because they know
Yeah.
that on the other hand, there is like a life in danger. They don't say, "Oh, this is going to be a false positive. We can sleep. See you guys tomorrow," right?
Right.
So, but they also rely on strong signals, right? So the signals need to be good. But the alert story you said reminded me. This is in the early days of Catchpoint. I was talking to this prospect, and so they did a trial of our product, and then they decided not to select us. So I was disappointed, of course, heartbroken, and I said, "Why?" I said, "Well, because with the other tool, we were getting so many alarms that basically the fact that they were getting 8,000 alerts a day, that was their heartbeat. So they got trained. They got trained on like using the alerts as like we're alive, we're alive, we're alive. And then when they tested Catchpoint, there was nothing because we didn't detect false positives. But that for them was unsettling. So they prefer to have it's almost like you do want the smoke detector in your kitchen to go on all the time because that tells you there is a battery at least.
Yeah.
But you see both
Huh.
sides of these things, right? And but you can't change. That's why it goes back to culture. At the end of the day,
Yeah.
culture eats everything, right? There is a famous saying that famous VC guy that said that culture, it's like Horowitz, right? Um, Culture eats everything. So
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, this has been an amazing conversation. Before we wrap up, what's the bottom line? Like, what's the one? If people are watching the video, they jump to the end. What is the one thing you want them to walk away with? To remember from this conversation, from this topic.
I think the thing is, that I would love people to remember SREs, DevOps, folks that use monitoring tools. You don't monitor for the sake of monitoring. You're monitoring for the sake of running a better business. So you are impacting the companies and the businesses and the organization you work for and you work in, right? So your job is critical at making sure that streaming service is entertaining people, that a shopping site is delivering food, that a car is being delivered to you on time when it's a ride sharing app. And so nobody does monitoring for the sake of monitoring for the giggles, right? I mean, it's like, why would you do that?
Right.
But at the end of the day, this is a critical. So your role, right, is extremely important. I mean, it's the Captain Obvious, right? But it's super critical in ensuring the health of the businesses, and so it's important to speak the truth if you see something that you don't like or that you need to be improving because your companies will run better. You will be rewarded for having done the right thing rather than hiding things under the carpet. I'm not saying that that's what people do, but I had the opportunity to do that in my career, right? And I
Mhm.
chose not to, and it was the right choice. So I think that's what I want people to remind. Is that, again, your reputation is key. That's your currency as a person. Integrity is very important, and so don't choose the easy way out.
Amazing. All right. Well, thank you again. I know that you've got 9 million other things to do, so I really appreciate you
Eight
carving out
million
some
nine
time.
thousand nine hundred ninety nine now. So
Right. One less. Absolutely. Well, I appreciate helping you knock this one off the list. Mehdi, thank you so much.
thank you. Have a great day.
I also want to thank all of you for watching this episode. It is no exaggeration to say that there is an overwhelming amount of technical content for you to choose from. And here at Catchpoint, we appreciate the time you've carved out for us. If you'd like to get notified when a new episode drops, remember to use the subscribe button below. For Latency and Leadership, along with everyone at Catchpoint, I'm Liana Dotto.